cutting Afro hair, you don't know how to approach it, you don't know how to break it down, you don't know what techniques to use to bring the fade out and the best potential in your client's hair. Mainly because the hair coils up nice and tight, and when you cut it, it's gone. Today, we're gonna be showing you guys how to break down Afro texture hair, how to set it up for success, and I'm gonna show you how to implement a fade and how to utilize specific fade techniques for you to have a successful day of cutting hair. Every single time we start off with a client, we always take a look at what we're given to work with hair-wise. So initially when you see a client's head, you always look at how much hair is growing in, what's gonna be staying, what's gonna be going. So preparation is super key. The longer the hair, the easier it is to manipulate. I would highly recommend you guys having a comb or pick. Today, since Keelan's hair is already short, I'm gonna be using my comb. Might as well start off with the wide tooth side first and then work my way to the fine tooth side. The reason why we start off with the wide tooth side is because it combs through the subject fairly easily. You get everything to comb down, you make sure everything is shaped and where it needs to be, and then you refine it with the fine tooth side. So when I hit it with the fine tooth side, this is what's really gonna get it to bunch together nice and tight. Do it all the way around. Make sure the whole entire head gets love. And then you set your foundations. Pick up your trimmer. I like starting guidelines off with trimmers. Everyone's different. You could use a clipper if you wanted to, but we're gonna get this fade nice and tight, so I prefer using trimmers. Today we're gonna be doing a mid to low skin fade on Keelan's head. So, initial guideline. You create your guideline and you clean up all the bulk underneath. You're gonna do the same thing on the other side, mirrored. Now we're gonna do the same thing on the back. I like manipulating my subject, my client's head, wherever I need it to be. The worst thing you could do whenever you cut clients in general is you work with their initial sitting posture, and from there you're already at a disadvantage. You're always gonna be having lights in the shop, overcasting shadows, and you're looking down at your work all the time. You don't necessarily want that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna move and prop the client's head downwards. What's gonna happen is it's gonna open up your playing field so much more. I'm gonna start my guideline in the back. That guideline is initiated. Now we're gonna clean up bulk all underneath. So guidelines are all finished now. We'll take a quick little 360 just to be sure everything's looking symmetrical and identical. After this, what's next to do is to debulk all the darkness and all the hair that is grown in from the sides. Here's where we'll introduce the first technique. We're gonna be introducing cutting hair with the grain. We're gonna grab our number one guard, we're gonna pop that bad boy on, and we're gonna open it. Always start with open. What typically happens when you use this technique is you wanna be compressing the subject that you're working on, and what it's gonna do is it's gonna chisel away little bits of hair at a time instead of just clipping the hair all together. So we'll start off with the parietal ridge, dropping all the way back down to the O bone, and same thing mirrored on the other side. Everything's been debulked, everything's been compressed, and you've taken off little bits of hair at a time. What's next from here is we're actually going to be cutting hair with the grain now. So since everything's been compressed, instead of grabbing your longest guard and going against the grain, it's not going to get the hair to lay down the way that you want it to. You're cutting against the way that the hair is growing. So when you're cutting with the hair and the way that it wants to grow, it's going to be so much easier. Now I'll switch over to my brush from my comb. I prefer using a super fine goat hair bristled hairbrush. Since we're cutting hair against the grain now, I'm going to switch over to a longer guard. So I'll hop over to my 1/2 guard. I'll pop that on. And again, to reiterate, the reason why we go to a longer guard is because it cuts off more hair, opposing to going against the grain, it cuts off less hair. So if I were to use this guard where I just used the previous section, it's not going to catch anything. When I flip it around, do the exact opposite, go against, it's actually going to attack the lines and get rid of some darkness and shade that I wouldn't want to be there. So moving forward, from here I'll start brushing. It's more fine. I'll start carving out my shape of where I want my blend to sit. Close my clipper halfway. I'll close it all the way. When you work with increments at a time, you'll be able to be in control of what gets to be cut, and you create yourself a mental map of what sections and what guards you use. I'll hop back over to my 1 guard and I'll do the exact same, except I won't go as high. So I'll stay within the down low region. I'm basically focusing on this little bottom line here and just blending everything into that top portion. You always want to constantly be brushing the hair just to be sure, because Kalen's hair does grow down. So you're going to have to continuously brush his hair as you fade, just to be sure everything is sitting where it should be. Close it an increment at a time. Continue fading, keep brushing. So here's where things get a little spicy. Since we are going against the grain, you can still jump back into using the other technique, going with the grain. It's natural for whenever you are fading going against the grain, meaning moving your clipper upwards, that the darkness is always going to bunch itself in that midsection. So how do you refrain that from happening and to make sure that your fade continuously looks good? You're going to be having to jump between going against the grain and with the grain movements. So with the same guard that you do have, I do know with this guard being open, I cannot go on top of this subject against the grain because it's going to be getting rid of too much hair than I want. And on top of that, you don't want to be putting a longer guard on because it's going to accumulate a bit more time in your schedule. You want to be as efficient as possible. So creating yourself that mental map, you have to resort back to this section. Going with the grain is what's going to compress and chisel little bits of hair out at a time. This will allow you to get a really nice, smooth, buttery end result. And I'll go back to my against the grain cuts. From here, I'm going to be jumping into my 0.5 guard. This is after my 1 guard. So we're going to pop that on. And every time you have a guard transition, we're always going to start from open to close. Increment subsections in between, we're going to have open, halfway, and finally close. This guard is honestly my favorite guard that Wall has to offer. You get to really see the final touches of this fade really coming together when this little bottom line starts to slowly disappear. And as I mentioned earlier, whatever you do down low will present itself and make itself known in that midsection here. So don't be afraid to even use this 0.5 guard with the grain techniques to tighten everything down. Fully really understand how this technique really works, you really just have to develop a feel for the blades. So one of my favorite techniques with the grain transition and cuts is that you could even use it with an open blade. I know it's a little risky, you might be afraid, but you just have to treat this as if it has a guard on. So what I mean is literally this shouldn't hold you back from cutting anyone And at this point, it's just you feeling out the clipper and playing with pressures at the end of the day that will get you to really tighten down these tight, narrow areas without having to take off too much hair. Start off with it being open. We'll close it, instead of halfway, we'll close it a quarter. And then we'll close it another quarter. We're about halfway now. We'll close it all the way. We'll make it jump a tad. That's option number 3. And the last final option is being fully closed. So level 1, open. Level 2, close it a quarter. Still focusing on this little bottom reminiscence of a line here. It's slowly starting to disappear. Really just trust the process and trust that the fact that this clipper is going to be clipping each of those little micro hairs. We're about halfway now, halfway closed. Close it all the way for level 3. So taking a look at Kaylin's hair, it's almost polished, it's almost finished. We still have reminiscence of that middle section here making itself known. It's natural. This always happens whenever we fade hair. So what are we going to do in order to get this to look as smooth as possible? So retracing our steps, and don't be afraid to go back. We revised it, we went through everything twice over, finished the other side to make sure it mirrors the first side that we have done. Now the next task is to get the back side to link to either side of Kaylin's head. In order to make this work, I love making a secondary guideline to make sure that we stay within a specific window, so we ensure that our work is in front of us and we know what steps to take to get rid of both lines. We're going to make a guideline with our 0.5 clipper, open blade. We'll make it about an inch wide. You see how I brought my guideline up and over, and you see how it's going to connect throughout Kaylin's side profile there. You'll see where the fade has been blended and where that line starts to show all the way back and around. And you're going to mimic the same thing on the other side. So in order to get rid of both of these lines, we have to, again, backtrack to what we did on the sides of Kaylin's head and basically reproduce it all the way back towards the back here. So I'll pop on my 1/2 guard. Now keep mental note that we have already debulked this whole entire subject with our 1 guard going with the grain. Now all that's left to do essentially is just to go against the grain and treat it as if it's any other textured hair, while obviously brushing down your textured hair subject to make sure that everything lays down in its natural position. Because once everything goes up and you cut against the grain, the hair is gonna sit itself and prop itself up. So you always want to train it to sit down where you want it to sit. I'll start off with this mid section here, and I'm gonna travel my way back. So I'll have my 1/2 guard closed. Bring it all the way back. Do the same on this side and bring it all the way back. And don't forget to brush. I like to brush afterwards. I'll do a second pass. It's always nice and it's always reassuring to do a second pass. I love using my line of sight, my sense of hearing, and my feeling of touch too through the clipper to be sure that the hair is actually being clipped. I love using the sense of sight of seeing if the hair is falling on my clipper to understand if the hair is cutting, and listening, honing in to make sure that I do hear the hairs are being clipped. I'll give you guys an example. Clean clipper, there's no hair on it. And to be sure that it is cutting, I'm gonna hear, I'm gonna feel, and I'm gonna see if the hair is falling on top of my clipper. And as you can see that it is, which means that that second pass was super helpful. I saved one of the best parts for last, and that's adding the shave contrast to the fade itself. So I left this part specifically to go last because you don't know where to implement this until you have added every single parts of the fade down onto your client's head. So understanding the idea of finishing your fade first and then using your finishing tools last, you'll have a more big, wide, broad spectrum of where to put this. A lot of the times when you do use this machine, you'll always create this little secondary line that happens from the skin to the stubble. You should never be worried. Implement this shave and then I will show you guys how to get rid of that little stubble afterwards. You want to get every single hair, every single grain. Now I'm going to show you guys two different techniques we could get rid of this last little final bit before we get to the next part. One, use your shaver. Two, use your trimmer. You want to go the safe route. You want to start with the trimmer first because it is the closest cutting machine that you have. What you're going to do is you're going to literally go over it. Number two, what you could do, you could use your shaver. And what you're going to do with the shaver is you're just going to tap and pull, tap and pull, tap and pull. Last little bit that ties the whole entire haircut together, my favorite part, is the lineup. What you want to do when it comes to the lineup, first I like starting off with a comb. Reason why is because you really get to refine where these hairs sit. Pull out all these hairs from the depths and the shadows of Kaylin's head. Just make sure you get every single little bit of it. It's hiding in there. Pull all these little stragglers out. A lot of guys make the common mistake of debulking this down too low, like taking it down a level where the lineup will not show.